our regularly scheduled committee meetings, preceded by a special meeting with 4 items on the special meeting agenda. And so we'll roll right into the special meeting portion of tonight's agenda. And Anne Marie, I will turn that section over to you for explanation and any action we need to take.
All right, Mayor, I'm happy to present on behalf of the team that has been working with Regulator Marine. Mallory Denham with the Edenton Chowan Partnership is here, and also assisting has been Tim Ivey with the North Carolina Economic Development Partnership, but Tim could not be with us here tonight. And of course, you all know Joan and Owen Maxwell from Regulator, and we're happy to have them with us this evening. And we are asking that the council consider adopting a resolution that would authorize the town to submit a grant application to the North Carolina Department of Commerce's Building Reuse and Expansion Program. Regulator Marine is planning a over a $4 million expansion, and that expansion will consist of adding on to an existing building, and that allows for the project to qualify through Commerce's program. And the expansion will create, well, for the purposes of the grant, the Maxwells will be committing to create 32 new jobs, but they expect to create more than that. I have a PowerPoint that I can show you. Joan and Owen prepared for us as part of the materials that we need to submit for the grant application. It's a multi-phase project, and where the Maxwells are now, where Regulator is now, is actually phase 3. And the plan is to convert and expand a current building into manufacturing space. This is the building that is proposed to be expanded, and it will include space for manufacturing as well as an upstairs mezzanine for additional offices that will serve primarily the engineering team at Regulator. And here's a picture of what the expansion will look like when it's completed. So we're really excited about the process, about the project. Again, for the purposes of the grant application, the company is committing to create 32 jobs, but they plan on hiring more than 32. Leave that on. The council knows from previous applications that the grant requires a dollar-for-dollar match from the company, which the state has tentatively approved a $320,000 grant. But of course, this project is going to cost well in excess of that. But the $320,000 grant not only requires a match from the company, but it also requires a 5% cash match from the town. And Mallory and I have been talking with the Edenton Chowan Partnership, as well as Kevin Howard, the county manager. A 5% match on $320,000 is $16,000, and we would like for this project and in projects going forward that if the match requirement is in excess of $10,000, that we would ask the partnership to contribute to the or to fund the cash match, because that's, while it's a lot of money for everybody, it's a lot of money for the town and the county. And so we feel like we can't commit, Mallory, that the partnership will agree to that, but we have confidence that they will. And if there is a problem, we'll certainly come back and let you know, but we believe that is a reasonable request, especially since the county is supportive of it as well. The grant application is due November 2nd. It's a comprehensive package, but regulator has submitted everything that they're required to, and it's just now a matter of us filling in the final pieces for the grant, and we'll be able to submit it well before the deadline. So with that, Mayor, we ask that the council consider adopting the the resolution authorizing submittal, and if you have any questions of the Maxwells, they're here, and of course Mallory is in the back as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members haven't heard that overview of what we're doing here with this grant application. Anybody have any questions?
I just want to say great, hallelujah, thank you. This is wonderful news,
Yeah.
and just so proud of what y'all are doing.
Absolutely, I think we'll all agree to that. We're so proud to have you guys in our town and expand into what you are. I think it's great, and we would be very stupid not to back you up.
I got one quick question. Is there a reason it didn't go for the max amount? I don't know. I
I'm
know
sorry, Tim pitched it to the state, and I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I know there's another level there. I think it's $12,500 per job, and I see you're only getting the $10,500.
I don't know. We'll check. We'll check
Yeah,
into that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is absolutely great. I was telling Owen and Joan, I use them all the time, and they're great grants. I mean, help create jobs.
Okay, anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, Chair would entertain a motion then that we,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second.
fill in the blanks, right? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the next step in this process by forwarding the resolution in with the proper documents, etc. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right, motion carried. We'll
Thank you.
send the packet away, ASAP. Very good, thank you all again.
Thank you to the council.
Oh, you're very welcome. As council members have already stated, we're just delighted that your industry has rebounded to the extent that it has. It's fantastic, it really is.
And we're now hiring. Please send people.
Yes.
And you know, every board I'm on locally, I mean, y'all always make great contributions, and I mean, I was in a meeting last week, and they were talking about a contribution y'all have made. So thank you for also reinvesting in the town at every chance you can.
Thank you. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Great way to start the evening, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and this next one isn't all that bad either. We're going to talk about resurfacing our streets in part, and the bids that we got back relative to that request. So Anne Marie, if you would bring that forward as well.
Mayor, and Corey's going to tag team me on this, but as you know, we opened up bids on Thursday, October 12th, and we were so pleased that the two bids were received, and the lowest bid actually came in several $100,000 lower than the engineer's budget, which when I was dancing around the office and telling Tammy the good news, she said, that never happens, that bids come in lower, and it rarely happens. So we are really, really pleased. So what we have for you tonight to consider is authorizing the award of the bid to Barnhill for the $608,000 project, which includes the repair and the resurfacing of Twitty Avenue, of Luke Street, of West Hicks Street, and of West Carteret Street. And then because the bids came in lower than anticipated, we are evaluating adding a few more streets. And Corey will be meeting with the contractor and with Derek Smith from the Wooten Company on Wednesday. we want to make sure that we maximize all the opportunities for additional cost savings. And so we anticipate, or we hope, that we'll be able to come back to you with a change order to add a few more streets to the list. We're looking at adding Mark Drive, a portion of North Oakham Street, and then also Dick Street beside the college, which serves as the main road in and out to for the school buses, and that needs repairs as well. Jennifer Baldwin has prepared the budget amendment to include what we hope will be the change order. So really, we'll just need, hopefully, to get some good negotiations between the town and the engineer and Barnhill, and then we'll be back for a change order. But by you authorizing this tonight, if you do, then Barnhill will be able to go ahead and get their bonding company to issue all the bonds, and we can get all the paperwork and have a pre-construction conference and get ready to repave.
Wonderful. All right. With that intro, the chair will entertain a motion to authorize the bid to the Barnhill contract.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Maybe we just need to adjourn after this.
Yeah. 2 for 2, right? Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize the bid to Barnhill, and also to look forward, I guess, to the recommendations coming from our staff as to how to spend the money that we had appropriated, which was not necessary to satisfy Barnhill's cost coverage to do the work. Very nice dividend right out of the block. Okay, any further questions or comments?
One question, I didn't see it in here. Who was the contractor that was twice as much? I want to make sure I stay away from it.
It was Robbie Parker from the beach, and really the engineer explained to Corey and I the reason they were probably so much higher was it was in the cost of the asphalt, and they don't have an asphalt plant close by, and Barnhill does, and so that's where the majority of the savings came about.
Duh.
Well, the asphalt for the deep patch repair was significant, as well as the amount of, it was $12 versus $7. Yeah, almost double.
Yeah, I mean, it went from 608,000 to $1.2 million.
Yes.
Duh.
Barnhill's price per square yard was $7, and Parker was $12.
That's good.
All right, further questions or comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right, we'll sign and get that authorization underway as well.
Tom Dean works as he can.
Tomorrow ain't too early.
That's right.
Now, the bucket truck bid award, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir. In the budget that you adopted, the plan was for us to purchase a vehicle, a new bucket truck, and lease finance it over 5 or 7 or 8 years. But in the course of doing the procurement, staff became aware of a gently used demo that would cost almost $75,000 less than what was budgeted. And so we're recommending that you authorize us to purchase this demo for $114,000 plus another $10,000 because some equipment has to be added to the vehicle, and that we would pay for that out of reserves and not finance the purchase. I think we think something cost them, less than $150,000. We should be able to go ahead and pay for that out of reserves. And it was pointed out in the agenda review memo, I made a mistake and said that the vehicle costs $75,000. It does not. The vehicle costs, it's $75,000 less than what a new vehicle will cost. But the budget ordinance that Jennifer prepared is accurate. It reflects the amount of the purchase plus the added equipment that's needed.
Okay, any questions or comments relative to the report? If not, of course, we can ask during the motion as well. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the award as presented for the bucket truck purchase.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to move forward with the truck purchase as described. Any further questions or comments? Can we dispose of the old one, what is it,
No deal.
Gov deals? Somebody, yeah, so we'll get a few bucks for that one too, right?
Yeah, it would be much sought after for people who cut trees and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
nobody
good.
can really buy it for municipality, for, power lines and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Easily sold.
Okay, very good. Further questions or comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right. Buy us a new truck. I like the used. Okay, and finally, under the special meeting agenda for tonight, we have budget amendments.
Mayor, Jennifer prepared the budget amendments, and the first one, what is before you, is what we call cleaning up the Powell bill fund, because, originally we were going to borrow $900,000 to do the work. I'm sorry, we were going to borrow $600,000 and then appropriate money from fund balance. But that plan of action changed, and so we're recommending appropriating money from general fund reserve, $495,000, and you would transfer that into the Powell bill fund, and then you would appropriate fund balance from your reserve in the Powell bill fund of $230,000. And we also have included funding to pay for the engineering and inspections work that is required. The Wooten Company will be on site when the repairs and the paving work is done to make sure that everything's done according to specs. So that's one budget amendment. And then the second budget amendment is for the bucket truck and the electric fund. And again, we cleaned up, if that's the right phrase, Jennifer, the lease purchase proceeds that we would have used had we financed the purchase of a new vehicle. So those two entries zero out that budget. And then again, appropriating funds from fund balance, and then putting in the expenditure of $124,992.
Very good, okay. Questions about the budget amendments?
We can do both of them with one motion. Kim?
Sure.
All right, yeah, fire away.
I'll make that motion.
All right,
Second.
motion and a second to approve both budget amendments as just presented. Further questions or comments?
Buy the truck tomorrow and let them ride on new pavement next week.
So it will remain gently used, right?
Hey, my granddaddy used to say everybody drives a used car. Everybody.
We won't take the suspension system out during the first week. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Thank you very much. All right, that's about as positive a kickoff as we've had in a while. All good stuff. Thanks to the staff and everybody else involved to bring this to the table. Very good. Okay, now we'll roll into our regularly scheduled segment for tonight, and that's committee meetings. We'll have 3 meetings. First, Public Works, followed by Finance, and then Administrative. And Councilman Stalin will chair the Public Works Committee meeting. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 items on our agenda tonight, and the first one is the stormwater maintenance report. And our new Public Works Director, Mr. Corey Goodin, will present an update of the work the department has done on stormwater maintenance, including recent maintenance to Phillips Creek.
Well, I hope to keep things positive like the first half of the meeting, but I do want to thank y'all for giving me a chance to speak tonight. The first half, we're going to look at a stormwater maintenance report. See if we can get this button to work. Okay. We'll start off with some background material, just kind of general statements around stormwater, just so we kind of get an understanding of terminology as we're going through the presentation.
Corey,
Next,
could you talk in the mic a little bit better, please?
that better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get started with background material just to kind of give us a general idea in and around stormwater, just so we have the correct terms and things going forward during the presentation. After that, we'll look at the local topography. We'll look through Edenton stormwater history and go forward with what our objective was over the past 2 months and kind of what the public works plans were moving forward. We'll talk about the site selection, particularly NC Highway 32 and North Granville in and around the constructed wetlands. And then also we'll do a executive recap around the East Water Street Stormwater Pump Station, which we met with last Monday with the Wooten Company to go over that for public forum. We'll recap that. Also, we'll look at the additional clean-out efforts that we've been doing kind of on a daily basis, and then we'll handle any questions anyone may have. So as far as background goes, stormwater is any precipitation, whether that is snow, ice, or rain, that flows over ground surfaces. This can be anything that's impervious or pervious. Stormwater systems are drainage systems that are designed to handle stormwater runoff, and that they direct this runoff into larger bodies of water. As far as stormwater systems go, they are made up of man-made systems which include yard drains, culverts, pump stations, etc., and they feed into naturally occurring systems such as streams, creeks, rivers, etc. Efforts have been made to mimic naturally occurring stormwater systems, such as what we have here at the Filberts Creek wetland. So, if we look at the local topography, what you have here, you see the reddish slash pinkish is showing the highest elevation within the town, and then also we see the bluish areas here which show the lowest elevation within the town. And also what we have noted here is some of the roadways to kind of get a perspective of what we're looking at to get an idea of where we're at within town. MLK, here we have Queen Street, North Oakham, and then NC 32 and Broad Street. As you can see, this is fairly consistent with our waterways. You see there is some spillover in some areas that we have here in town. But for the most part, this is something that we're all fairly familiar with. So if you look back at the local stormwater history, again, we're trying to put this in perspective for everyone where you can see the notable roads. Here's NC 32 and where Filberts Creek runs parallel to Granville, and we have Moore Circle in this area. We have Broad Street, Oakham Street, and we also have Queen Street. And looking back, we found these images from an engineering report from David Jackson from Hobbs Upchurch Associates from July of 2000. And these actually represent trouble areas that the town had found previously in the early 60s. And this was a result of a storm system that had moved through during the summer months, late summer months, 1960. So looking a little further into this, I actually found out this is a result of a hurricane that came through in September 12th, 1960. And this is a result of flooding that we had in the area. As you can see along Broad, we have two areas of interest along Water Street, also around Filberts Creek where the constructed wetlands is, and then also into Moore Circle, and then as well around Filberts Creek closer to the bay near Pembroke Circle. So this
Can I just interrupt 1 second?
Yes.
It made me think, looking at that and remembering Hurricane Matthew. Fire Chief, doesn't it look like those are the areas where you had your rescues, where you made your rescues.
Yes, ma'am.
And so if you look back, this is consistent also with the topography of the town itself. This is something that appears to have been an ongoing issue over the years, and we were able to validate that from maps that we were able to locate from the early 60s. So our objective for the Public Works Department, particularly our Streets Department, was to improve the current system containment capacity and improve the capability of our stormwater system to process runoff safely and efficiently. And that's really been our goal moving forward. So if we look, the first site that we're going to discuss is around Filberts Creek and the constructed wetlands. Here again is NC 32, and this is Granville. As you can see, the existing stormwater systems on the south side of NC 32 and also on the north side as it approaches Moore Circle. And so we knew that there was a very high level of water in this area, and we wanted to see if there was anything we could do to really get water to move through this system a little quicker. So one of the things that we began with was on the north side of NC 32. There was a irrigation ditch and also culvert that fed into a stormwater basin on the north side that you can see here and runs up behind the Shell station or duck through area. This area was pretty heavy with soil and sediment within the water system. We were able to get both of these areas cleaned out to really try to get some water moving south of 32 and in parallel with Granville, so we could really try to push things through when we get parallel here to Granville Street. Also, one of the issues we had ran into, there was a clean out station that was at the intersection of 32 and Granville, where we really couldn't access that to really monitor our stormwater system, to keep an eye on things, to make sure we didn't have a lot of buildup, a lot of trash, a lot of debris in the system that could be restricting access. So street supervisor was able to get this area really cleaned up, and we actually have this now graded correctly. And so we are able to take a look at this, and which we do more often now moving forward because it's a lot more accessible. Also, while we had located this, there were one additional storm drain and one culvert that we located that had been completely covered. There was no stormwater on the east side of Granville moving south, basically through this area. So now, if we look back, you can see there's also been flooding concerns around the intersection of Granville and 32. We feel like that these two items should help mitigate that water and get that through the wetland system. And so this is a really good find, a really outstanding job from the supervisor and his crew to locate this and get this area cleaned up. Also, there was some overgrowth in this area to allow the sidewalk to be clear. So now when you're walking through here, you can see that on Saturdays at the farmer's market when you headed back to your vehicle. But the major area of concern was parallel to Granville across from the county offices. There was a large amount of sediment that had gotten itself into this ditch. We were able to get this cleaned and graded. And if we look going forward, we've actually seen substantial drops in front of the medical center in between both of their driveways. And then also on the county side, we've seen a great amount of water move through this system. So if you look at these photos we have here, we lost over a foot of water just in those ditches in front of the medical center and then parallel to Granville. And this is roughly just in the ditches, not counting what's moved through the wetlands. Roughly 50,000 gallons of water has since moved through and into Filberts Creek. So you can see the before at how restricted the driveway culvert was versus now we have a substantial drop in the water line from here to the current water level. So we've really seen a lot of great success out of this and are very pleased with what the guys were able to find. Outstanding job. Let's see here. So the next site that we're going to discuss tonight is the East Water Street Stormwater Pump Station. As I mentioned earlier, the Wooten Company was in on the 16th of October. So we're going to really look at a kind of executive summary of what they had during that discussion. So the East Water Street Stormwater Pump Station was designed in 1981 by the Department of Agriculture Soil Conservation Service. This pump station roughly handles 74 acres of the downtown Edenton area, and it does discharge directly into Queen Anne Creek. The pump at the pump station has a capacity of 15,000 gallons per minute, and the well itself is just under that. There are two primary effluent pipes that discharge or infeed into the pump station, a 36 and 48-inch pipe, and then there are two connections that are gravity fed that actually exit out of the pump station. There's also a force main for when that pump comes on that pumps out into Queen Anne Creek also. So one of the things that the Wooten Company performed was an on-site inspection in August of 2017. The inspection was to really try to troubleshoot and see what items we could do in-house and what were any type of long-term projects we may have in the future, as well as any short-term items we could handle. So if you look, we have the access point for the flat valve itself. We had some washout areas around the pump station foundation. We had a in-feed culvert, and then also the two influent pipes that feed the pump station that run from Queen south into the East Water pump station itself. So some of the things that Wooten had found was there's a leak in the discharge at the force main. There was also some electrical concerns. The general operation of the flat valve. There was also some concern in the capacity around the influent lines, as well as things we could do during storm surge events where we actually completely shut off that pump station to eliminate the recycling of water from the bay back in and really creating more problems. Also, like we were just looking at here, is a couple of sinkholes where we had a leak. So as you can see, these have some indirect impacts: local flooding, sanitary sewer overflows, temporary road closures, and risk to public health and potentially property damage. So what the Wooten Company recommended short term was the adjustment of the float levels in the wet well, as well as address the sinkhole in the western portion of the station. We were going to clean and CCTV the two influent lines, repair the force main leak, replace/rehabilitate the flat valve, replace the drop inlet located upstream. That was this area here. Also, we were looking at replacing the electrical control panels, as well as replace the existing steel access hatch with something that's more of a traffic rated grading, so we're able to view that flapper valve and check its operations during our normal PMs. So that was our short-term list, kind of within the next 2 years. So when we look at our priority 2 or our long-term goals, they are extending the bulkhead there in the curb around East Water Street, and then also to finalize the GIS mapping of the storm system. We currently do have some of the storm system mapped out. Wooten done that work for us as well, but this would be more of a complete GIS mapping of the entire system. So, along with their recommendations, Wooten Company also provided us with cost for each priority 1 and priority 2 items. This kind of gives an idea over the short and long-term goal, what the estimated cost would be for the entire project. But one thing we do want to note here is we thought this estimate was high for the electrical, let's see, the replacement of the control panel for the pump station, 60,000. We do feel like that's a little bit high, but also noted this is estimates, so these prices are subject to change. So if we look at what type of improvements we have done in-house over the past 2 months, or over the past year, I would say, since Matthew, we have installed a new check valve on the force main to prevent any backflow from Edenton Bay back into the station. One of the things that we are planning to do during the winter months is actually make the repairs around the force main that Wooten was referencing. This is a short-term fix with this check valve because that limits only the concern of any sinkholes to when that pump discharges. So any other time, we're in a good spot. We are working with a local electrician to repair the electrical concerns. Like I said, we felt those estimates were a little high, so we are exploring alternatives with him. What we have done, based from Wooten's suggestion, is adjusted the float levels within inside the wet well. The floats themselves were actually at the original design height, but based on further analysis with the Wooten company, they felt that we could gain a little more capacity out of that wet well itself by making some adjustments. And so we have done that within the past 6 to 8 months. That's been taken care of. We are working now with the local contractor to find divers to check the flat valve and the discharge lines into Edenton Bay. We're still in the process of working through that. Depending on the severity of the influent or the discharge lines will determine which contractor we need and which diver as far as their level of certifications. We're also exploring options in-house now to increase the local runoff capacity surrounding the pump station. That's really to help with local flooding right within that lot. We feel like there's some things we can do to add some additional capacity to get moderate storms on in that pump station and off the soil level. What we have done also is implemented the complete shutoff during the storm surge events, and we've also replaced the inflow piping from the street, which is here behind Lincoln and David, that ties into the wet well. That was one of the concerns around the west side of the station where we were seeing the sinkholes. In addition to these two sites that we've really focused on, there's a lot of additional stormwater clean-out efforts that we've been making throughout the week. Within that extra hour, 2 hours here and there throughout the day once normal operations have finished up. We have, as of June 25th, 2017, these are the most recent efforts. We've North and South Broad, North and South Granville, East and West Peterson, East and West Carteret, East and West Freemason, East Church Street, East and West Albemarle, East Eden, Oak Hill Drive Drainage Ditch, East and West Queen. We did examine section 12 of East Queen and then around the 300 block. What we have determined that we would like to add an additional storm clean-out station for in-house maintenance. The span there was just too long for what the equipment we have, and it makes sense for us. We're dealing with these day in and day out to be able to do the maintenance ourselves. And so what we think we can do is reduce the length between the catch basin at the street to the first clean-out. That way we can make sure that we don't have any obstructions there. And then also feeding into the East Water Street pump station, we've checked East King and examined all of section 01. That's from East Queen and both Eden Street tie-ins. So needless to say, we've been fairly busy for the past 6 months, and at this time, if anyone has any questions about anything, I'll be glad to answer.
I don't really have a question, but I'd like to say I've spoken to quite a few residents that are along the East Water Street area and attended the Wooten presentation, and they were very impressed very pleased, great relief to see this going on. And you've done a fantastic job of, in my mind, of going back and looking at those sections that could be improved over a period of time through adequate maintenance and care, preparing for the potential. And I'm, I know along with a lot of our residents that are in these particular areas that are that are affected so quickly by heavy rain, water accumulation, like the backup along Granville Street, the water that came up off of Pembroke. It's great. I want to thank you and pass that on to Wooten, that people are very pleased with what they're seeing.
Thank you. I will.
Well, Corey, it certainly seems that you have hit the ground running, and you've
To
done
say
a
the
lot of work
least.
and a lot of improvements on what needs to be done, and of course, I'm sure there's a lot more that needs to be done, but as Bob said, we certainly appreciate what you have done and the fact that you certainly have hit the ground running, so we certainly thank you for that.
I just wanted to add that the staff, before Corey got here, spent a lot of time kind of working from the northern part of town its way south. And we did a lot of work on Paradise Road and in Eden Heights. We found a lot of catch basins, and then we came down Broad Street and the side streets, and there was a lot of accumulation of muck, and that was taking up capacity. And so, you know, when you look at the whole town and the effort to kind of start from the northernmost parts and work its way south, I think we've made a lot of progress. And I really like what Corey is doing in terms of setting up regular routine schedules so that
Yes.
we don't get
Great.
muck buildup, that we retain that capacity, that newfound capacity that the staff has created. So, good job.
Thank you.
Quick question, do you think we can get a grant to do that bulkhead?
Well, that's our hope. Either through CAMA, we've applied twice or 3 times and have been turned down for the bulkhead on East Water Street. And I kind of think the reason we were turned down is because we already had the grant. We had an open grant for the bulkhead at the waterfront. But there may be some hazard mitigation funds also for that project.
I just want to say too, Corey, I'm tickled to death that you're doing this, because as I look back when you were showing that map from 1960, the flooded areas in, and it seems like we went from evidently that time until about a year ago, that it really had, I mean, I wasn't here in Edenton in 1960, but it sure seems like that we went a lot of years without that area flooding. And now all of a sudden, every time we get a big rain, it floods. Whether it's the 3-2 100 block of North Broad and even beyond, down by the high school.
Yeah.
So, you know, kudos. I'm glad we're working on this to stop the flooding there anyhow.
Thank you.
Stop it anywhere we can, but
Yep. And these
places
are,
that it didn't flood for years, and now all of a sudden it's flooding again.
these
gotta
are
be a reason.
ongoing
This
efforts.
is the accumulation of that muck
Well, yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah, the pipe's half full of dirt.
Yeah.
While we're on that, it seems to me that we need to put some teeth in the thing of these, and I hate to say this, but it's got to be said. These professional yard mowers and yard cleaners and all, they're blowing all that stuff in the street. And when they blow it in the street, guess where it goes?
Yeah.
And it's stopping up, it's causing these problems. So I feel like we need to get a letter out to each and every one of them, and then we need to put some teeth in it. We've talked about it before, but we never followed up on it. And Elizabeth, is that something in your department, or is that, what do we need to do?
I think we could share the effort
And actually, that's part of the next presentation that Corey's going to make is some recommendations that he's made to address based on
Yeah.
feedback from staff. So.
Why don't you just go right on into that, if you will, since you're up there, if that's,
See if we can get the notice pulled up.
I didn't put that on the
Okay.
Corey had
PowerPoint.
made some suggestions, some proposed amendments to the code for yard waste.
Yeah.
And Corey, if you want to touch on that now, please do.
Yes, we are, one of the things that we've been working on along with the stormwater, we've been focusing on some of the yard waste issues we're having in town, and also outside of town. And based on some of the state requirements that are fairly new to us, as far as how we manage our yard waste and/or land clearing debris, we have made some changes as far as what we'd like to see, as far as special pickups, things in excess, and that also in the amendments that we've brought forward, there's also a line item there to address the grass clippings being put into the roadways. I don't have that announcement with
I
me.
missed that,
It's on here.
Corey had recommended that, sorry,
Go ahead.
that the code be amended, which- that yard waste shall be placed adjacent to the street, not in the street, and not blown into the street using mechanical blowers to prevent waste from entering the town's storm sewer system and making its way into Edenton Bay. And
It's number 6.
it is, it's on number 6. And then there are a couple of little minor tweaks, but the penalty would be a violation. Police chief, he talked to Hood about maybe possibly changing the amount of the fines that we have, what are the level of fines, and you did a survey, and our fines are pretty much in line with other communities, so we don't recommend changing the fine. I think the big thing is if you adopt this code, Corey and Elizabeth have prepared an actual flyer that's attached, and we would propose to include that in the utility billings, and then also we could do a separate mailing to the contract yard maintenance people.
I've actually had calls from people in town wanting to know what they could do to stop the people from blowing it into the street. And it's not all contractors. A lot of us residents have done it too. But you're right. It is something we need to get teeth in.
And so currently, we have special collections fines that we deem appropriate based on what we see, what the recommendations are from the supervisor whenever they submit a report on any place that may have anything in question, whether that be special pickup for something that's unacceptable for us from a trash perspective or from yard waste size. Anything larger than 4 inches in diameter, off of trees, whole sections of tree trunks or, tree stumps, things like that we really need a lot of manpower on, but we have been issuing those, or more recently, issuing those, and the supervisor, Lincoln's doing a great job documenting any of these items that we see, so we have valid support a month later when the homeowner may ask questions as to why there was any special charges. So I think public notice is really the best approach for us, for the residents and the contractors. And we do see contractors a lot in town, and that's one of the things that the supervisors will stop and make sure those guys know that they're aware of that.
Well, if you have any comments or questions of Corey?
I'm not on your committee, but if I'm reading this right, we passed an ordinance in July of 16. And I was thinking it hadn't been that long ago that we talked about exactly what you were talking about, Jimmy, was blowing stuff in the street, and that we were going to, really put the teeth to it. But Number one, how much is the fine? We were talking, when you were saying that you thought it was,
Is it a misdemeanor and $50, Chief?
$50 per occurrence, so if somebody's putting X amount of trash on the street and then somebody else or the same person is blowing the leaves in the street, then it's two separate fines? Is that the way that works? So
It's one fine for each offense, but you do have the leeway to set the fine higher per offense. The general fine is set in our code of ordinance at $50, but for example, you made the sound ordinance $100, and some of the other ones you had raised, so you do have the ability to make it higher if you wish for that offense. But $50 may be enough to stop it right now.
would you recommend second offenses be higher?
That's a good possibility. That would help it. That would probably help it down a lot.
That would be putting some teeth in it.
And have we issued, over the last year or two, three, whatever, have we issued any tickets?
No.
No.
Okay.
This, I think the wording, the amendment, if you approve that, will give us the teeth that we need.
I think it's very good. I do think it's important that we get information out, not only to contractors, but however we can do it to residents.
I agree.
That it's going to be a fine, don't do it.
So I'm assuming we need to send that to full council, and we,
Yes.
so, Sam Lowe's is okay with you,
Yep.
we'll send that to full council.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much, Corey.
Yes.
Good job. Well, that's all we have.
Thank you. Good meeting. Moving now to finance, Councilman Dixon, please.
So we have two things on tonight. One is very exciting to me personally. It's a grant that we've received, Emery, we received
We received the grant.
Yeah.
You all have to
Yeah.
approve the grant agreement.
and it is to do hire a consultant and a person to do a video of the East Gale Street community, the historic assets there, especially Katie's Church, all those really sort of famous Batum buildings and the Kadish parsonage. And the grant agreement is for $4,500, and we have a $3,000 match. Isn't that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and and we'll put it on the website. I think Kadish can use it. I think everybody better use it in what they're doing, and that's just such a important part of our town that really needs some attention. And I think this is a great way. It's through the State Preservation Office. Reed Thomas has helped, and thanks to Anne Marie for all she did to make this happen. And I think it'll make everybody in that part of the town very excited. So, yeah, well, I just recommend we approve that, and we're going to send it to full council next time. Anybody have any particular thoughts on that? We'll send that on. And then the second thing we have on is the amendment for professional services for the NC Housing Finance Agency. I'm going to turn that over to you, Anne Marie.
Yes. You may recall, last year, we finished up this grant and we were eligible to apply for a couple more units to be funded out of the pool. And the Wooten Company is working on those units, and since so much time has gone by since their original agreement was approved back in 2014, their fees have increased a little bit, and they've asked for a very modest amendment to their agreement for administering this grant. And it's still, there's still funds available in the grant to pay for, to cover their costs. I think instead of per house administrative costs being like $2,800, it's going up to like $3,200 per unit. But it won't involve any funding from the town. There's money in the grant to pay for this increase.
So we'll send that on.
That was 3,700 and some odd, 3,900.
3,900.
I think that's all we got. Send those both on.
All right, thank you, sir. And final committee to meet tonight is administrative, chaired by Councilman Biggs, please.
Mayor, we have two items on the agenda tonight, and one of them is unfortunately, the house that sustained a lot of damage due to fire a couple of weeks ago. The house itself, the homeowners would like for it to be demolished, and unfortunately, they didn't have any insurance. And so Anne Marie and the fire chief have spoken with the homeowners, and they would like for us, if possible, to demolish the home and add a lien to their taxes, or add it to their taxes. As Anne Marie told us, they are working with friends and neighbors, and anyone that would maybe want to make a donation to help when this is done, to take care of this lien that will be placed on the property. So I guess we will send that on to full council. Hood is drawing up the paperwork for us. I guess that'll be done totally before our 14th meeting. Okay. And then also the ordinance ordering the demolition of the structure at 104 Valentine Avenue. And if it's okay with Norma and
Yes.
Mr. Bond there, we will send it on to full council, both of those.
If I can just add, Elizabeth is working with Bud Powell on a bid sheet for demolition contractors, and we hope to have a bid to submit to you on the 14th, so that you'll have everything in order to expedite the demolition. Is there anything else, Elizabeth?
It does it for the administrative committee, on a sad note.